So again, I'll make sure that my active part is the handle lever, and I might just turn off the other components so that I'm certain that I'm working on the correct component. And I'm going to do extrude. I'll select this profile and I'm going to go symmetric, total distance of 0.4. I'll say OK to that. And then I'm going to select this edge and I'm going to do fillet on this edge and this edge over here of 0.15. And then I want to remove some of these faces with the shell. So I'm going to do shell, and I will select this face, and I'll select this face. Notice it goes all the way around the tangent. I'll select this face, and I'll select this face, so it'll go all the way down to the end. I'll select that face, and I'll select the two cylindrical holes. For my thickness, I'll do 0.125, and so I've shelled this out. And I would like to see if I can convert this into a sheet metal part. So I'm going to come up here to the sheet metal tools. Actually, I want to see if right click, so I don't see a convert to sheet metal there, but I'll go to the sheet metal tools and I'll do convert to sheet metal, and I'll select this part, and it comes up with the thickness. It detects the thickness. I'm going to set this as steel, and so now I see that this is a sheet metal part. And if I want to check the flat pattern, and I'll select this as my stationary face, we see that it gives us a flat pattern for that component. If I turn the visibility of my other components back on again, and so here we see this component, and I've allowed a little bit of clearance between here and here on both sides so that this component can move. If we drive that joint, we see that that component moves without interfering. Now there will be a point up here at some point where this would come in contact, so you might design this in such a way that that's a limiting factor. You will also have the limiting factor here of how far that can move, and it can only go so far down before it contacts up here. So you don't want this to go so far that somebody has a hard time bringing these two together. If they can use it with one hand, they don't have to use two hands to bring this up close enough to put it into one hand. So think about those sorts of design considerations as you are designing the components. The next thing I'll do is model this press plate. So let's make the press plate our active component. I think I'll turn off the other components. We'll go to the sketch of the press plate. I'll edit sketch. I'll change this line to construction, X on the keyboard. Now as we're modeling this, we might want to make sure that we get all the dimensions in here to keep this fully constrained. And I see that I put this dimension in here twice, and I really intended just to put in equal, so I'll delete one of these dimensions and I'll do equal, this circle equal to this circle. But I need to make sure that the rest of my dimensions are fully defining this model. So I'm going to do a fixed constraint, which I'm going to end up removing. So I'll do fixed, and I'll select this line, and that line is now fixed. But if I try dragging these circles, I see that it actually moves up and down. So let's undo that fix step on the line, and instead of fixing the line, I'm going to fix this point. So I'll do fix, and I'll select that point, and when I do, it's harder to see on here, but it changed that point to green. Earlier when I selected this line, let's do it again just to see, it changed that line to green. We know that it's a fixed constraint, and you can toggle fix on and off by just selecting that, and so we can toggle that back. Actually, I've got this thing unconstrained, so I need to fix this end as well. So I'll do fix on this end, or I could do the line. Let's do the line so we can clearly see it. So I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to put it out here in space someplace, but I want it parallel to this line. If I scrub that line and come over here, we see that it's going to do it parallel, and I'll come down below this circle, and then I want it perpendicular to this line, so I'll come up here to where it shows perpendicular, and then I'm going to come back up to about here, and I'm going to then go to the center of this circle. I want this line to be perpendicular to that line, so I'll do perpendicular, this line perpendicular to this line. I'll change this one to construction, and I'll change this line to construction, and I'm going to put the midpoint of this line at the origin, at the center of this circle. So I'll do coincident, or do midpoint. I'll do midpoint this line to this point, and then I'll put some dimensions on here. So the distance from here to here is 0.75, and then I'm going to put a arc coming out here with a line with an arc over on this side. So I'll draw a arc. I'll go into the line command first. I'll click and drag an arc over to about here. I'll come over with a line, and then I'll click and drag an arc to this point. I need to make sure this arc is tangent right here, so I'll do tangent. This arc is tangent to this line. I want those two arcs to be equal radius, so I'll select this arc and this arc, and I see that that one actually didn't stay tangent, so I want this arc tangent to this line. And when I did that, after I put the equal in, I could either have done the tangent or the equal radius, and I'll dimension one of those arcs. I'll dimension the radius of this as 0.325. We see all of that turns black, and then I'm going to draw a center point arc, and so I'll do a center point arc, and I could do this as tangent or as center point. I'll do a tangent arc, but I have two lines here. I have this line and I have the construction line. I want to come off of this line, and I'll come over about like that, and then with a line from here to here, and I'll make this line tangent to this arc, and I'll make that circle coincident, the center of this circle coincident with this point, so that turns black. And then I need to put an angle dimension in here between this line, and I'll do that angle as 120 degrees. So all of that sketch turns black. I know it's fully defined, and so now I can remove that fixed constraint. And so I'll go back to fix, and I'll toggle this to unfix that line, and I'll also unfix this point, and now those fixed constraints are gone. I will then do my extrude, and I will extrude this area. I'm going to go symmetric, total distance of 0.4, and I want to end up making this into a sheet metal part, and I forgot something that I wanted to add to that sketch. So let's edit this sketch, and let's do a rectangle, and I want to do this as a 3-point rectangle. And so I'll do a rectangle, a 3-point rectangle, with the first point on this line and the second point on that line, and then coming up about like that. We'll dimension the distance from the center of this circle. So I'll dimension the distance from this circle over to this line, that distance as 0.5, and then I'll dimension the height of this line as 0.15, and the width of this rectangle, I'll do that as 0.025. And again, if I go back and I put that fixed on here, this geometry is fully defined. I'll take that fix back off of there. Now we might be able to leave that on there without issue. I'll have to test that and see. I'll finish this sketch, and I'll make that sketch visible again, and I want to extrude cut that rectangle through the part. And so I'll do extrude. The rectangle is down inside here, so I'll have to do a long left click, and I can get that profile, and I'm going to tell it to go symmetric, and we'll tell it to go through all, and we'll cut that slot going through the part. I'll hide that sketch. I don't need to sketch anymore. And then I'm going to do fillet, and I'm going to select this edge and this edge. I'll do a fillet of 0.15, and I'll say OK to that. I'm then going to shell this part out, and so I'll do shell, and I'll select this face. It goes all the way around to this face. I also want to shell this face, and make sure you get this small face in here and this face over here. So I've got all of this going around over to here, and then I'll also select this hole and this hole. I'll do that as 0.125, and I'll say OK to that. Now it looks like we have a sheet metal part here. Let's see if we can convert this to sheet metal. I can tell you we're going to have an issue right in here. Notice that face is, this face is not perpendicular to this face. So we'll try to convert that to sheet metal. So I'll go to sheet metal. I'll do convert to sheet metal. I'll select the part, and it gets the thickness. I'll tell it the material, and it doesn't give us an error. But if we try to go to flat pattern, then it gave us a flat pattern, but this result right in here is not correct because that cut isn't perpendicular to the flat. So the cut should always be perpendicular to the flat. Now it might have just even given you an error, but I'm going to go back and do this a different way so that it ends up with a correct sheet metal part. So I'm going to go undo until, so I'm going to delete the shell. Delete those faces again, so I'll do delete, and I'll delete these faces and this one. So these were the same faces that we selected when we did the shell. Right, so this one and this one. So we delete it. We'll select those exact same faces that we did when we did the shell. We'll say OK to that, and so now we have an infinitely thin surface body, and we'll thicken that. So we'll do thicken, and we'll put in the thickness of 0.125. Now watch the direction. It went to the outside. I need to go to the inside, so I'll do minus 0.125. So you might think that this will give you exactly the same results as doing the shell did, but notice right in here is where the difference is. So when we did shell, that was a straight face across here from here over to here, but now with the sheet metal, or with the thicken, it gives us a valid sheet metal part. So we can go to sheet metal, we'll convert to sheet metal, I'll select the face, I'll select the material, and now when I try to do the flat pattern, I'll select that face. And so now we see that all of these edges are perpendicular to the flat, which is the correct for the sheet metal component. So that completes this part. We'll turn on the visibility of our previous components. And if I go to that first revolution joint and I say drive that joint, and we move this, so we see that the components move. So the last thing we need to do, or next to last, we still have the plastic covers to put on the handles, but we need to put the link plate from here to here, and also the pins to hold all of this together.